A few weeks ago, we looked at some of the best and worst signings in the Premier League from this season. So now we're going to look at some from Europe. This is top or flop. So first up on the list, and it's Romelu Lukaku. Moved to Inter Milan last summer and this season has been on absolute fire. In fact, he's got 17 goals in Serie A. That's more than he scored in either of his 2 seasons at Manchester United, certainly in the league. He's been a really good reason why Antonio Conte's side have challenged, although faltering a little of late, for the Serie A title. And considering all the abuse he got at United, that his first touch was crap, that he couldn't score, all this and that, he's pretty much proved all the haters wrong. Definitely a top signing in my eyes. Now, secondly, we come to Antoine Griezmann. Now, we've spoken about this quite a lot recently on the channel and how I just think he's been a flop signing, mainly because he really should be doing better, considering the money that Barca spent on him, 120 million to Atletico Madrid. I'm not so sure you can really accept just 14 goals and 6 assists. Now, when moving to Barcelona, of course, you are playing with better players, so you'd probably expect that a player would naturally do better in that situation. Despite this, it is fair to say that Griezmann has been played out of position, and still, any player that comes into the club finds it really hard to play with Lionel Messi. You either gel with him excellently, and he's your best mate, and he gives you loads of assists, and you assist him a la Luis Suarez, or you find it kind of difficult to struggle, maybe even to get the ball, which is certainly we've seen from Griezmann this season at times. Don't get me wrong, he's still been a good player and putting some half-decent stats, but I think considering the money they've spent on him, and considering he's already a fully fledged, fully experienced player at both club and international level, Barca fans would have been expecting a little bit more, so I'm going to give him a flop signing. On to the next one now, and it's Mauro Icardi and his loan move from Inter Milan to PSG. And in all honesty, he hasn't exactly torn up any trees. Like, yes, he's gone in and got 14 goals in 20 Liga games, but isn't that kind of what you're expected to do? He's moved from an Inter Milan team who were really pushing on. He was a captain. He was a quality player. He was getting the goals. He was carrying the team, and they were really starting to achieve something. And he's moved to PSG, where you can only really fail domestically. Like, if you win all 3 trophies every season like they've been doing, then yeah, that's what they're expected to do. And if they lose, it's a complete failure. Icardi's come in and he's almost sort of become a second-rate player. He was the man at Inter Milan. And now at PSG, it's kind of like, well, they've got him. Yeah, they can throw him in. Yeah, he'll score a few, but Mbappe and Neymar still are the main guys. I mean, I really don't think he's done that much, considering the fact that PSG don't look like they're so interested in exploring the option to bring him in on a more permanent basis. And if you add this to the fact that he's fallen out with Thomas Tuchel and hasn't appeared in the second half of the season as much he did in the first, I'm going to give him a flop. So next up, and from flop signings to a top signing, yet it's another loan deal, and it's Martin Odegard moving to Real Sociedad from Real Madrid. Now, when they first made the investment in Odegard at like age 15 or 16, of course, people were expecting big things, but only in the future. However, it seemed like when he went out on loan to, I think, Vitesse and also Heerenveen as well, things didn't quite work out just as well, and he maybe wasn't progressing enough to show that he was good enough for the Real Madrid first team. It looked like he'd be another one of these players who just consistently go out on loan and never actually really be worth that much. But forget all of that, and massive props goes to him. This season, he has been brilliant for Real Sociedad. Not only are they challenging the top 4 for a Champions League spot in La Liga, they're also in the Copa del Rey final, and on top of all this, he's got something like 8 assists and 7 goals this season in all competitions. He's been doing so well at Real Madrid that many fans and a few people from inside the club are speaking about his return to the first team. This would be massive for him. After so many years of being turfed out, it'd be brilliant to see him come back in and really show why Real Madrid bought him in the first place and why fans have a right to be excited about him. Of course, to Real Sociedad, they want to extend the loan by a further year, which I believe they have the option to do. But when it comes to a little bit of money and quite a lot of power, Real Madrid are pretty much the kings at this stuff. So from a top in Martin Odegard to yet another flop, and that is Philippe Coutinho. I'm kind of putting him in the same sort of bracket as Mauro Icardi, that he's moved from a club where, fair enough, he wasn't doing so well at Barcelona, but he's moved to Bayern Munich, where anything other than domestic success is deemed a failure, and he hasn't even been doing too amazing at that. There have been flashes of brilliance. Don't get me wrong, he's gone through patches of playing really well. The Champions League has gone very well for Bayern, and in the league, they're still leading the table as well. But the fact that they don't look like they're going to be signing him on permanently for like 100 million, whatever they wanted, and the fact that his parent club Barcelona don't look to want him back either, shows just how much he's being held in regard. Not so high. I mean, if he had a wonderful season at Bayern, they'd want to keep him. Barca would definitely want him back, and there'd be no rumours about him moving anywhere else, but they haven't because he just hasn't been good enough. So Coutinho is a flop signing. And we're moving from one flop to another flop signing, Eden Hazard. Now, for Eden Hazard, I put him in the same pretty much bracket as Antoine Griezmann. He costs a lot of money, he's an incredibly experienced player, and he just hasn't hit the ground running. The media know it, the fans know it, the board know it, and thankfully enough, Eden Hazard himself knows it. He's spoken about how fans can expect to see the best of him next season, but even if he does, that's not quite the point. I mean, Real Madrid don't go and spend 100 million on someone who's supposed to be in their prime and then allow him a season to settle in and say, don't worry about it, mate, you'll be fine next year. That's not quite how it works. With a youngster, yes, like they're crosstown rivals with the João Felix at Atletico Madrid, fine. But not with Eden Hazard moving in. Anyway, if he does pull out all the stops next season, which I'm sure he's got the talent and the ability to, there's no question about that, he'll follow in the footsteps of like Thibaut Courtois and Luka Modric, who both had poor seasons to their start of life in the Bernabeu, but then turn things around afterwards. And we all know what happened with Luka Modric, 4 Champions Leagues and a Ballon d'Or win. Maybe Hazard's got that up his sleeve. However, for this first season, a flop signing. But to get rid of all that negative energy, let's bring in a top signing, and that is Benjamin Pavard from Bayern Munich. Last summer, he moved from Stuttgart to the Bundesliga champions for around 35 million euros. And if that's not a good deal in today's day and age, I don't know what is. 35 million euros for a defender who's played right back, centre back, and left back in a season which has seen Bayern's defence hit by injury, but yet has still put in such stunning performances along with a few others that they've got the most clean sheets in the Bundesliga, joint fewest goals conceded, and well, they've been in scintillating form with just picking up pace. And if anyone's going to complete any sort of massive feat this season, including winning the Bundesliga and the Champions League, it looks like it's going to be Bayern Munich. Pavard has been a brilliant part of that, so much so that it wouldn't surprise me if he followed in other defensive-like players in winning the Bundesliga Player of the Year whilst at Bayern Munich. In fact, Jerome Boateng and Philippe Lahm have both won that award from a defensive position in the last 5 years or so. Next up, and Matthijs de Ligt from Juventus. Now, when he moved to Juve, it's probably fair to say they weren't planning to thrust him into the spotlight quite so soon, but due to an injury to Giorgio Chiellini, he was thrown in at the deep end alongside Leonardo Bonucci, and I think handled it pretty well. Yes, there was definitely a shaky start to the season, especially conceding a few penalties, but he's definitely shown his maturity, and it's easy to forget that he's just 20 years old. Like, he led Ajax as captain to the domestic double and to the Champions League semi-final last season, so it's really difficult to just remember that he's still a kid and he's got so much to learn. I mean, when you're the centre-back at Juventus, not only are you following in the footsteps of legendary defenders, and you're expected to be a top defender yourself, that's a lot of pressure. Also, you've then got the massive price tag on top of that. I think De Ligt has handled this pretty well and really shown signs of improving throughout the rest of the season. Again, when you talk about his long-term career, that'll be absolutely nothing for Juve. Even if he stays there for just a few years, he'll still be an unbelievable signing. But if you take into account the fact he's with Juve, handling the pressure, leading Serie A, and more than likely to turn around a 1-0 deficit in the second leg of the round of 16 in the Champions League against Lyon, I think you can say De Ligt has been a top signing. So whilst De Ligt is a top signing, maybe not the highest, but still a top signing nonetheless, another player who moved from the Eredivisie to Serie A is definitely not. That is Erving Lozano from PSV to Napoli for around 42 million euros, and he's been a flop. I mean, during that World Cup of 2018 with Mexico, he showed everyone he is such a brilliant player. That was sandwiched between 2 brilliant goal-scoring seasons at PSV, so you don't really blame Napoli for making the move. Like, 42 million is a lot when you consider he flopped, but had he been amazing, it would look like a pretty good deal. Despite this though, 3 goals in all competitions, he's been injured for little bits, he's been inconsistent, he hasn't really got a run in the Napoli team. I really don't think you can say he's been anything but a flop, especially for the most expensive Mexican of all time. So lastly but not least, Frenkie de Jong at Barcelona. He has appeared in all but one of Barcelona's La Liga matches this season, and has just done basically what you'd expect Frenkie de Jong to do. He's been a brilliant presence on the ball. He's super calm. He's got a brilliant forward pass. He's chipped in with a few goals and assists, so that's not really too much of his game. And I think Barcelona can safely say their midfield is in safe hands, certainly his safe feet when it comes to their future. Of course, there's loads of other problems going on at Barca. They might need a new defence, needs to back up front, and hey, Busquets is getting a little bit older. But in Frenkie de Jong, they've got a brilliant midfielder, and although he costs 75 million euros, he's definitely going to be well worth it. I'm not saying he's completely been unbelievable this season and been worth every single penny, but he has definitely been a great player for them this season in what necessarily hasn't been the brightest campaign. Frankie Dion closing out the show, a top signing. So there you have it, 10 of the biggest transfers from Europe this season, and deciding whether a top or a flop. But you guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. And who else would you like to see if we do another episode of this format? Whilst you're at it, you can smash the like button and click here or here to check out all of the other videos we've got going on Onefootball. But until next time, I'll see you guys later.